Discover the amazing journey of a single cowboy ready to provide a loving home for his daughter. Jake stood on the porch of his weathered ranch house, the sun rising over the endless plains, casting long shadows across the ground. His hands, rough and calloused from years of hard work, held a steaming cup of coffee that he hardly tasted. He looked down at Lily, her golden hair catching the morning light as she chased a butterfly. She had an unwavering spirit, a vibrant essence that felt everything but despair. Yet as he watched her joy, Jake's heart was heavy. The loss of his estranged wife had left him staggering, the burden of single fatherhood an anchor pulling him under. As he slid into his work boots and glanced back at the little girl giggling in the morning light, a jumble of fears twisted in his gut. Could he be the father she needed? He battled against the judgments of the polished ranchers in town, their smiles concealing whispers that questioned his capability. They saw him as rough around the edges, a man more accustomed to life on the range than reading bedtime stories. But here he was, trying to stitch together a semblance of normalcy from the tattered fabric of his past. Every time he harnessed the horses or mended the fence, he felt a tightening knot in his chest. The constant reminders of his inadequacy eclipsed the simple joys. What if he couldn't provide? What if he failed her just like he had failed his wife? It was a haunting refrain that crept into his mind, clenching around his heart. The ranching community offered no solace. Their polished boots and glib manners seemed to separate Jake from what he longed for, a positive image of a strong father. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Mr. Thompson, the elder ranch owner, had noticed Jake's struggle as well. With a kindness born from decades of weathering life's storms, he offered his wisdom. "This ranch can still be your salvation, Jake," he'd said, his voice a raspy whisper of encouragement. The plan they hatched to enter a local cattle competition glimmered with hope. An opportunity for financial security and a chance to build a legacy for Lily. Yet amid this fragile hope, doubt crept in. As news spread, rival ranchers eyed Jake with jealousy and scorn. He could feel their daggers plotting against his ambition, hoping to see him crumble. What if they were right? What if he stumbled when it mattered most? The tension coiled in his stomach tighter than a lasso around a wild steer. The horizon felt heavy with impending storms that mirrored his inner turmoil. He fought against the rising unease, vowing to protect Lily's future while wrestling with his own demons of grief and fear. Just as a flicker of hope ignited in him, tragedy struck unexpectedly, leaving Jake on shaky ground. Across the porch he could hear Lily's giggles. They cut through the chaos, but the laughter felt distant, blurred, as shadows of despair settled around him. He was faced with an agonizing choice: to retaliate against the rivals who sought to bury him, or to channel that energy into creating the home and love Lily deserved. The weight pressed heavier on his shoulders, tightening around his heart like the rope of fate. With every passing moment, Jake stood at the precipice between vengeance and virtue, teetering between the past and a future that felt as uncertain as the shifting Texas winds. Jake tightened his grip on the railing, feeling the worn wood bite into his palms, grounding him amidst the storm of emotions swirling inside. He thought of the looming cattle competition, its promise like a distant lighthouse in a tempest. Was he truly prepared? The nagging doubts threatened to engulf him. He could almost hear the petty laughter of his rivals echoing in his mind, each chuckle an indictment of his worthiness as a father and a rancher. Lily continued her playful pursuit of butterflies, blissfully unaware of the chaos around them. Her laughter was an anchor, but it also deepened his sorrow. What kind of father would he be if he let these men defeat him? What legacy was he leaving her? In that moment, he resolved to summon a fiercer spirit from within, one that had been masked by grief and uncertainty. He needed a plan. Days blurred into nights as Jake pored over his cattle, taking stock of each one. He sought out advice from Mr. Thompson, who proved to be an invaluable mentor. "You have a good eye, Jake," Mr. Thompson had said, pointing out 2 particularly strong steers. "Focus on what you have, build on the strengths, don't dwell on the failures." These words took root in Jake's mind. Instead of succumbing to the weight of expectations, he began to see the strengths that lay within him. The labor on the ranch transformed. Instead of merely repairing fences or tending to the animals, he began to cultivate a learning atmosphere. He found himself watching the cattle more intently, understanding their needs, and recognizing their personalities. Each day he discovered new aspects of ranching, hidden grains of knowledge that had been dormant for years. The more he learned, the more passionate he became. Lily often trailed beside him, her little fingers brushing against the hides of the animals, her wide-eyed curiosity igniting something deep within Jake. He saw her reflect the spirit of resilience he sought for himself, and it sparked a commitment to nurture both her and the ranch with renewed fervor. Together they visited the fields, counted the cattle, and even attempted to mend the old barn, a hands-on endeavor laden with laughter and the occasional mischief. However, the threat of rivalry still loomed. Each day, Jake felt the weight of competition pressing heavier against his resolve. One afternoon, amidst a routine gathering with other ranchers, he overheard hushed whispers directed at him. Words flew like arrows, sharp and biting. They doubted his ability to produce good stock, to be a real competitor. For a moment, fury coursed through him. How could they judge his efforts, his dedication, when they hadn't walked a mile in his boots? In that boiling moment, Jake was faced with a choice. He could lash out, prove them wrong through anger, or lean into his growth, using their skepticism as fuel to propel him forward. He turned the anger inward, transforming it into an intense focus on his preparations for the competition. He began to devise a plan, a strategy that would account for these judgments, one that would show them he was capable not just as a rancher, but also as a loving father. Days passed, and as the competition day approached, the tension morphed into anticipation. He felt a sturdy resolve growing within him. This was not just about proving the others wrong. It was about creating a future for Lily, a testament to the bond they were building together. In the reflective stillness of the night before the competition, Jake sat with her under a blanket of stars, pondering the journey that lay ahead. Yet, even amid the calm, the winds of change whispered truthfully of challenges yet to come. Would he be able to rise to the occasion? The crowd's expectations loomed large. Jake realized this was no longer just a test of livestock, it would be a test of his heart and spirit as a father and a man. And just when he thought he had steeled himself for the challenges awaiting him, he received an unexpected visit from one of his rivals, a move that set his pulse racing. The time had come to face more than just a competition. Jake stood at the edge of his property, the sun beginning to dip below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the ranch. The approaching visit from his rival, Bennett, swirled in his mind like the dust kicked up by a passing vehicle. He took a deep breath, attempting to center himself, reminding himself of the growth he had achieved. Was this a challenge, an attempt to intimidate? Regardless of the intent, he told himself he had come too far to let fear dictate his response now. As the sound of gravel crunched under the weight of Bennett's boots grew louder, anticipation short-circuited Jake's calm. He stood tall, a stark contrast against the openness of the ranch, ready to confront whatever awaited him. The unease nestled in his gut was replaced by a flicker of determination. He was not the same man who had floundered in doubt mere weeks ago. Bennett approached, a confident smirk plastered on his face, his eyes glimmering with what Jake could only interpret as mockery. "You still think you have a shot at this, don't you?" he said, his tone light but laced with condescension. "What do you know about real competition? This isn't just about being a good father, Jake. You need to prove you're made of tougher stuff." The words stung, but Jake remained silent, his mind racing. The challenge was insidious, a looming specter of judgment that had the power to unravel his newfound purpose. He felt anger bubbling up again, but tried to redirect it. "What do you want, Bennett?" he finally asked, adopting a steady tone, a slight quaver betraying his underlying anxiety. "I want to see if you really have what it takes," Bennett replied, leaning closer, his eyes narrowing. "Show me your best, not just your cattle, but you. I'll be watching." Bennett's taunt hung in the air, unsettling but illuminating a crucial truth for Jake. This wasn't just about the competition. It was a relentless test of his resolve, his identity as a rancher, and the father he aspired to be for Lily. As Bennett walked away, Jake felt the familiar tightness in his chest, but now it morphed into something else, fuel for the fire he had ignited within. In the days that followed, he became more focused, almost obsessively so, studying his cattle day and night. He asked questions, deepened his understanding of nutritional needs and training techniques, and sought out even deeper guidance from Mr. Thompson. Each new piece of wisdom was a stepping stone, reshaping the vision he had for himself and his ranch. Every morning he woke before dawn, the vibrant colors of sunrise spreading across the eastern sky, echoing his own awakening spirit. The routine became sacred. This was no longer just about competition. It was about mastery, a deeper understanding of ranching, and ultimately about establishing a legacy that Lily would be proud of. With each passing day, he felt a surge of confidence building. The laughter of Lily while they worked side by side solidified his resolve, reminding him of the stakes. They were creating a life together, one built not only on the components of ranching, but on resilience and love. This tender connection between them acted as his shield against the cynicism surrounding him. Yet as they mounted the final preparations, the shadows of doubt still flickered at the corners of Jake's mind. He caught snippets of conversations among other ranchers, whispering about him, a cloak of skepticism hovering nonetheless. With Bennett's words echoing in his thoughts, the competition was drawing closer, and the fear of failure began to infiltrate his newfound confidence. Was the bond he was establishing enough to overcome the deeply rooted doubts of his peers? With just days left, Jake stood before his cattle, and as he looked into their eyes, he understood something crucial. To truly overcome, not just in the competition, but in life, he would have to confront not only his rivals, but the criticisms within himself as well. Would he find the strength to trust his instincts and skills when the spotlight was on him? The question lingered heavily in the air, a potent reminder that the next moment would unveil more than just cattle rankings. It would reveal Jake's true character. The days melted into one another as the competition loomed ever nearer, each sunrise heralding the final steps toward an uncertain victory. Jake could feel the intensity in the air, a charged atmosphere that bared its teeth as he began his morning rituals. There was no time for the ambivalence that had once consumed him. The training had to reach a fever pitch. Every moment spent with his cattle now felt pivotal, as if each interaction could either forge or fracture his potential success. In the quiet of the dawn, he meticulously honed his technique, adjusting the positioning of his livestock, ensuring they felt comfortable yet challenged. He noted how their muscles tensed in anticipation of his commands and how they responded to his every gesture. There was a rhythm to it, a cadence he had learned to trust. Yet, as he navigated this intricate dance, Bennett's mockery echoed in his mind, wrapping like a coil of tension around his resolve. Would any of this be enough? The ranching community buzzed with activity, the chatter of competing ranchers drifting into Jake's thoughts like discordant notes in a symphony. Each whisper stoked the embers of his anxiety, and for the first time in weeks he felt the shadows creeping back, self-doubt creeping into the open expanse of his conviction. It wasn't just the pressure of performing in the competition, but the expectations he had placed upon himself, woven thickly alongside his desire to be a commendable father. As he stirred the silence one morning, determination coursed through him like a river seeking to carve its own path through unyielding stone. He gathered a handful of ranchers for a discussion. The sun hung high, merging shadows with light, a metaphor for the challenge ahead. To seek guidance was not a sign of weakness, but an act of bravery. "Jake, you've been working hard," Mr. Thompson noted, admiration evident in his voice as he clasped Jake's shoulder. "Most new ranchers don't take initiative this way. What's driving you?" Jake inhaled deeply, searching for the words that might encapsulate this burgeoning resilience. "It's not just about the cattle anymore. It's about proving I can do this, for Lily. I have to show her that hard work pays off, that she can chase any dream." Amidst sympathetic nods and murmurs of encouragement, Jake felt a shift. Their words were laden with wisdom forged from years of experience. This was more than just a race against Bennett. This was about building confidence among peers, about standing tall in a place that once felt hostile. He recalled his past weeks, the landscape of his emotions transforming from barren plains to lush valleys of potential. But this wasn't enough. He needed to solidify what he had learned into actionable strategy. As days fused into a countdown, Jake crafted a plan, a detailed regimen revolving not only around the cattle, but around mastering his mental state. He visualized each moment, approaching the competition ring with poise, engaging with the judges as they scrutinized performance. At the heart of it all was the unwavering image of Lily, him as her pillar of strength. Yet with his head held high, there was still an unease, the half-formed question snaking its way through his thoughts. Was mastering the external enough if he could not wrestle with the creatures of distraction within? The trepidation rippled beneath the surface, teasing out phantoms of his past failures. With the day before the competition dawning ominously on the horizon, Jake's heart raced. He stood once again before his cattle, feeling the weight of their trust resting heavily upon him. The stakes had never felt higher, and with Bennett expecting a flaw, Jake understood he would have to dig deeper than ever before. Would he summon the courage necessary to silence the doubter within? The answer was close, but tantalizingly out of reach, a riddle just waiting for the right moment to unfold. And in that silence, the impending day sweetened with promise, pushed forward by a single thought. The true battle had just begun. As morning light broke over the horizon, casting bronze hues across the pasture, Jake's resolve wavered beneath the surface. The weight of failure loomed, ready to tip him into the chasms of doubt he had fought so hard to escape. Today was supposed to be a culmination of his efforts, yet all he could grasp was the faint tremor in his hands, the echo of Bennett's taunts stirring once more. Was he truly ready to take this leap? Taking a deep breath, he steadied himself. The cattle grazed quietly nearby, unaware of the inner storm raging within their caretaker. They represented his commitment, a bond he had cultivated through patience and hard work. Still, he feared that the judgmental eyes of the competition awaited him.
Each moment spent with the cattle, each soft brush of his hand against their flanks, pushed him a fraction closer to understanding that this wasn't merely about winning. It was about integrity, about demonstrating that perseverance could ignite possibility. Yet uncertainty twisted in his gut, urging him to confront his fears rather than skirt around them. He recalled the stories Mr. Thompson shared during their discussions, tales of ranchers who took risks, who faced both failures and rebounds. These memories softened his anxiety, reminding him that every hard road wound toward a horizon of growth. It was time to transform that fear into fuel. With fresh determination, Jake prepared his cattle for the day ahead. He guided them
with a newfound clarity, practicing his movements until they flowed seamlessly like water. Jake focused on commanding their attention rather than seeking perfection in each step. Watching their reactions, he realized control was born from genuine connection, not just technical precision. The cattle responded, their trust bolstering his own. Jake paused, recalling his conversation with Lily moments before she turned in for bed last night. She had snuggled close, her innocent questions challenging his perceptions of strength and vulnerability. "Daddy," she asked, voice barely a whisper, "if you try your best, will you still win?" He hesitated before answering. Her belief in him held more value than any title. "What matters is that I never stop trying," he had replied, knowing the truth of his words resonated far deeper than a mere competition. The sun climbed higher, painting the sky with radiant colors as he finished grooming the cattle. Jake seized this moment of calm, allowing his reflections to take root. This was more than a contest. It was a chance for him to model resiliency to Lily. Wouldn't that lesson hold far greater weight than merely securing a trophy? As competition time inched closer, he organized his thoughts, letting the rhythms he had practiced settle into his muscle memory. He embraced the idea that he could transform this anxiety into an electrifying focus. It was a shift, recognizing that if he approached this challenge embodying the values he wanted to instill in Lily, hard work, resilience, humility, then he had already succeeded, regardless of the outcome. But just as clarity enveloped him, the shadow of his rivalry flickered to life in the recess of his mind. Bennett had become the living emblem of obstacles, and he anticipated a clash that would reach beyond livestock, a trial of spirit and determination. The image of Bennett smirking, waiting for him to falter, caused a shiver to dart down his spine. Jake inhaled deeply, feeling the rise of unrelenting resolve. The opportunity to rise above scorn beckoned him, a challenge that he would not shy away from. He had faced internal battles before, but this time it was about so much more than pride. He had a daughter to consider, a daughter whose faith in him would echo through every action taken today. In that moment, standing amidst the cattle, feeling the earth warm beneath his boots, Jake understood his journey was about to unfold in ways he could only begin to fathom. What awaited him beyond the threshold of the arena was a confrontation that promised revelation. Would he emerge as the man he aspired to be, not just for himself, but for Lily? The air crackled with anticipation, his heart pounding against the cadence of his thoughts. The time had come to face not just his competition, but the defining essence of the man he wished to become, a task that would test everything he had grown to believe. In the midst of self-doubt, the question blossomed: would he rise or would he fall? Each breath felt like a stepping stone, leading directly into the storm ahead. The true challenge was waiting, and he had passed the point of no return. The arena loomed ahead, a vast expanse filled with the scent of fresh hay and the distant echoes of excited chatter. Jake stood at the entry point, surrounded by a smattering of other ranchers, all brimming with confidence and prowess, each carrying the weight of their own stories. He felt oddly detached, as if he were an observer in a world that spun too quickly for him to grasp. Yet beneath that layer of unease, a spark ignited, a resolve born from countless quiet days spent alongside his cattle, aligning his heart with purpose.
He stepped forward, feeling the draw of the environment. The sun glinted off the polished livestock judging scales, and the distant shouts from the crowd rang like a challenge. As he entered, determination transformed into a palpable force. It washed over him, providing clarity amid the swirling chaos of expectations. Today, this was his stage, the moment he would allow the culmination of his efforts to shine or falter based on a single exchange. Bennett moved among the competitors, his swagger repeatedly punctuating the air as he flitted from one confident rancher to the next. The smirk never left his face, a constant reminder of the rivalry that had hung over Jake like a specter. Jake's heart raced. Bennett exemplified the very doubts Jake sought to defend against. A part of him whispered it might be easier to blend into the background, to avoid confrontation altogether. But today was not about ease. It was about progression, personal growth, a chance to redefine his legacy not only as a rancher, but as a father. As the cattle were brought forward for inspection, Jake felt his mind sharpen. He wouldn't just execute the tasks he had practiced, he would transform them into a dialogue. Each command he issued would not merely be a reflection of competition, but an expression of his connection with the livestock. He moved with purpose, exuding an energy that seemed to draw the eyes of the crowd toward him, and, more importantly, toward his cattle. With every step he took, the sway of the cattle mirrored his confidence. Together, they became a unit. Watching them respond to his cues fueled a sense of agency within him, tightening his grip on both pride and clarity. The judges observed with unyielding scrutiny, their pens poised to capture insights on not only the animals, but the person leading them. In that moment, Jake understood. He was not just performing for them, but embodying what he had trained for. Yet, as the judging continued, the tension loomed larger. He could feel Bennett's gaze steadfast on him, assessing, ready to pounce at any moment. This wasn't merely about cattle or competitiveness. It was a battle for his sense of worth, each moment becoming more electric than the last. He envisioned Lily, her eager, trusting face beaming.
He focused on that, ignoring the invasive thoughts of self-doubt nudging into his psyche. He had something greater to prove, a lesson in resilience to impart through his actions. Suddenly, Jake's cattle slipped, a stutter in their rhythm that caught everyone's attention. Panic shot through him, and he felt the urge to reshape his fear into something tangible. Instead of freezing, he inhaled, channeling the moments when Mr. Thompson spoke of recovery. This was what they had prepared for, the unexpected, the adversity that tested resolve. He corrected himself, adjusting his stance and ushering his livestock back into position. With each stride, he rebuilt the connection, the tension of doubt morphing into focus. As the cattle regained their poise, Jake experienced a significant disruption in his inner narrative. This wasn't about the outcome. It was about how he faced the uncertainties, how he harnessed them into determination. The realization struck him. What mattered was not just winning, but revealing the caliber of his character. In defeating self-doubt, an unexpected strength unfurled within him. But would it be enough? As he faced Bennett, whose smirk seemed to amplify with each small stumble forward, Jake pondered the true measure of victory. It was clear that today would define more than just a moment in an arena. It would shape his path moving forward, a path strewn with lessons of courage, alignment of purpose, and deepened relationship as a father. And as the competition rode towards its apex, the question twisted sharply within him, suddenly brighter than before. How would this newfound strength impact the life he longed to create for Lily? As the judges scrutinized each rancher's display, a sense of urgency gripped Jake. He could feel his heart thumping loud against the backdrop of judgment, a rhythmic reminder of the stakes involved. This was not just about cattle. This was about his capacity to redefine himself. Bennett's eyes glistened with malice, prepared to seize any opportunity to undermine Jake's efforts. Beneath that confident exterior, Jake recognized the whispers of fear that crept in, uncertain of whether his newfound strength could stand against the radiant oratory of self-doubt. It was as if Bennett thrived on uncertainty, feeding off the vulnerabilities of his competitors. But what would a true victory look like? Would it be in defeating Bennett, or in affirming his resolve to be better for himself and for Lily? With the cattle now steadied, Jake redirected his focus from the external chaos to an internal dialogue, a vital checkpoint for clarity. Each command flowed from him with assurance, turning the arena into a shared space of exchange rather than mere performance. In that interaction, he found his voice. It was no longer about proving himself to others. It was about showing Lily that resilience was a way of life, not an occasional battle. Mindfully observing his cattle, Jake leaned into their rhythm. What began as anxiety morphed into trust. It felt like a dance, every movement an uplifting energy, bonding him more fiercely
To his livestock, this connection was profound, awakening something deep within him, his belief in persistence, authenticity, and love. As the final remarks of the judges began to surface, a sharp whisper of doubt fluttered again in his mind. What if this wasn't enough? What if feedback led to rejection? He thwarted the thought, channeling his energy into gratitude for the growth he'd already achieved by confronting his fears. In the midst of chaos, as steps quickened and competitors nervously exchanged glances, Jake caught sight of Lily, small and innocent, watching intently from the sidelines. Her bright smile lit the shadows of his uncertainty, reminding him of his underlying purpose. She was his guiding star, igniting a persistent flame that banished doubt's chilling grip. Bennett's smirk was now more of a sneer. He had been watching Jake closely, pretending to be uninterested while scheming his next tactical maneuver. It was inevitable there would be a final face-off, a test of their intertwined fates. Surprisingly, Jake felt something shift within him. Not fear, but anticipation. He embraced the challenge as it approached. Confrontation no longer loomed as a shadow, but rather an invitation to showcase his evolution. The judges called for the finalists to gather for the conclusion, the air thick with tension as everyone awaited the verdict. Jake barely listened to the chatter. Instead, he focused on the flickering thoughts stirring restlessly inside him. This journey was a revelation of hidden capabilities, not just as a rancher, but as a person ready to endure and build the life he wanted for Lily. The future was forming, a mosaic of moments built on courage, growth, and love. Then, as the head judge began her final comments, the words hung in suspense, filled with promise yet heavy with potential disappointment. The stakes tugged at him. This was not merely a competition. It was a chance to reclaim his narrative. As the names of the champions lingered in the air, Jake braced himself for the truth, whatever it may be. He realized that in seeking to evolve beyond the immediate success or failure, he was carving a path toward a larger purpose. But would he emerge victorious in the eyes of the judges, or would he confront a reality that tested his resolve even more? The moment of truth was upon him. His heart pounded, ready to face the impending revelation. The names reverberated within Jake's mind, his reality narrowing to a singular focus. Jake Donovan. The sudden clarity of his name shattered the tension, awakening both jubilation and trepidation in equal measure. As the applause erupted around him, he felt the weight of all eyes converging on his journey. On him. He had won. But even triumph brought a duality of emotions, lingering questions gnawing at his victory. Had he truly proven himself, or was he simply forging a facade that would gradually erode under scrutiny? In that moment of recognition, he thought of Lily. Would this accolade mean more to her than just a trophy holding? Dust?
Jake stepped forward, squeezing through narrow pathways filled with well-wishers eager to congratulate him. Their enthusiasm was palpable, yet it felt somehow distant, as if he were suspended between acknowledgment and longing. A tension simmered beneath the surface of his excitement. This victory needed to translate into lasting meaning, a catalyst for change rather than an isolated event. As he exited the arena, the smell of sun-baked earth mixed with the sweet scent of hay filled the air. He could still hear the burly laughter of Bennett echoing behind him, a reminder that while he may have emerged as the champion today, challenges were just beginning, creeping back to confront him. "Congratulations, Dad!" Lily's jubilant voice cut through the noise, and he turned to find her running toward him, her arms extended, a rainbow of innocence and joy wrapped in a simple embrace. In that moment, Jake felt emotions well up, love, pride, and a deep-seated need to anchor this sensation in reality. "Thank you, sweetheart," he whispered, kneeling down to look into her eyes. "This is for you. It's a step towards something greater." Her smile illuminated everything. Yet, as he straightened, the echoes of self-doubt clawed back at his thoughts. What did this victory signify long-term? As he scanned the horizon, contemplating the next steps in his journey, he found himself questioning where he would channel this newfound recognition. Would he utilize this win as a springboard, or let it envelop him in carelessness? Back at the ranch, sleep eluded him. The crickets outside serenaded the night, but inside his mind, thoughts raced like the wind sweeping across open fields. He reflected on what it truly meant to succeed. Yes, the silver trophy glittered on the shelf now, but would he instill in Lily the same resilience and grit that had brought him this far? Success was not a destination, but a continuous leap of faith shredded with risk. Daylight broke with newfound resolve. He squared his shoulders as he stepped into the cold morning air, invigorating and daunting. Today would not be about basking in glory. It would be about action, a tangible impact on his and Lily's lives. Jake gathered his tools and began assessing areas of the ranch that required maintenance. Simple tasks turned into reflections on responsibility. Each nail he drove deep into wood echoed the commitment to create a stable home for his daughter. As he worked, an unexpected realization dawned. Amidst the bidding voices of doubt, Jake discovered an ability he had long overlooked. He could learn from lives lived before him. Each farmer whose hands bore the marks of labor delivered lessons not solely in ranching, but in human existence. His introspective revelations forged clarity of purpose, laying the groundwork for what success could mean for him and Lily moving forward. But with this clarity came a looming challenge, a decision that would force him to face Bennett not just as a competitor, but as a constant mirror reflecting his own fears. Would he step into that confrontation with boldness or retreat back into the shadows of insecurity? As he wiped the sweat off his brow, he turned his gaze toward the vastness beyond his fields. The reality of the awaited showdown loomed near, whispering of further trials and opportunities for growth. Jake knew the stakes were rising. Now was the time to confront the adversary, made up of both outside forces and his inner conflicts. The clock ticked louder, propelling him forward into the unknown. Would this next confrontation redefine him further, revealing the depth of courage he now held? With every beat, the urgency escalated. A revelation curled at the edges of his mind. If he emerged from this, he would be more than a father or rancher. He would become an undeniable force in his own destiny. Jake donned his well-worn boots with a renewed sense of purpose, the soft creaking resonating against the backdrop of the morning's awakening. Today was not merely about tending to the ranch, but about embracing the challenges he had long avoided. As the sun climbed higher, casting its golden glow, each ray felt like a nudge toward resolution, a call to action. He started at the corral, his hands moving almost automatically as he checked the fencing.
Yet with each attended post, reminders of his lingering doubts clawed at his focus. Would he still be deemed worthy after the initial cheers faded? The looming competition with Bennett was as much about confronting external pressures as it was about confronting himself. Each plank he secured, while vital for safety, felt remarkably symbolic of his struggles. As he labored, he noticed Lily watching him from a distance, her small frame silhouetted against the sunlight. "Dad," she called, her voice buoyant with childhood innocence. The way she lifted her arm and pointed made his heart swell, only to be followed by the familiar weight of uncertainty. Would she understand this journey of his? "Yeah, sweetheart," he replied, turning, his sweat-drenched shirt clinging to his body. "Can you teach me how to fix the fence?" Her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm, undistracted by her doubts. In that instant, he realized he could turn his struggles into lessons for her. If he chose not to falter, she would witness resilience firsthand. "Absolutely," he said, suppressing the instinct to retreat into his insecurities. Lily bounded over, excitement overflowing. "Let's do it together." Together they began the task, each hammer strike punctuating their shared laughter. As he instructed her on the proper techniques, he felt an unexpected surge of confidence. It excited him to think of passing down this sense of diligence. In those moments, while bending down to her eye level and demonstrating, he realized he was instilling values deeper than mere mechanics, values of perseverance and commitment. "Dad," she quipped, tilting her head, "are you scared of Bennett?" It was an innocent question, raw and unguarded, but it struck deeper than any jab from the outside world. He paused, understanding that while he had navigated many physical hurdles, the true challenge skyrocketed within. "I guess I am," he admitted, unsure how the weight of his vulnerability would be perceived. "But why? He's just a person, right?" Her naivete was refreshing, and he chuckled. "You're right, Lily. He's just a person, and sometimes those perceptions of others can be tougher than the task itself." The conversation did something remarkable. It ignited a flicker of bravery within him. Here was his daughter, seeing him not as a champion, but as a regular guy facing uncertainty. It was a bond through which they could share bravery and vulnerability equally, tools for facing the world. As the sun descended, Jake felt another shift within him. He understood that no matter the outcome of the impending clash with Bennett, his identity was not defined by a single confrontation. If he faltered, it would not signify his failure, it would be another opportunity for growth. With a decisive breath, he wiped his hands on his jeans, preparing for the next steps on this evolving journey. "Lily, how about we make a plan for how we're going to handle Bennett together?" Their teamwork was revitalizing, transforming doubt into insight. He would not merely fight against Bennett, he would strategically prepare and reflect on the purpose behind it, not just for him, but for Lily. As they wrapped up for the day and made their way inside, an image of Bennett standing before him emerged unbidden. But it was no longer about fear, it became a stepping stone. The stakes had been raised, yet within Jake's mind loomed a definitive question. Would the confrontation empower him, or would it shatter the fragile confidence he had begun to nurture? That night, restless in bed, Jake turned sideways. As sleep began to claw at him, thoughts of their preparation veiled his fear. But the weight of the confrontation still loomed large, casting shadows over his aspirations. The moment to step forward was approaching, thick with ambiguity and potential. A sense of readiness throbbed beneath his skin. He was no longer just a man reliant on victory. He was a father gearing up to shape the future. As sleep drifted closer, an unsettling but riveting question twisted through his mind. When morning came, could he stand up to Bennett, not as a defeated man, but as the architect of their shared destiny? The sun broke through the early dawn, casting warm hues across the fields. Jake stood at the edge of the corral, an unsteady resolve fluttering in his chest. Today marked not only a confrontation with Bennett, but the culmination of his transformative journey, a journey governed by resilience and an aim to nurture both his ranch and his relationship with Lily. As he tightened the belt on his work pants, he felt a wave of determination wash over him. Gone were the days of self-doubt that had cast shadows over his relationship with Lily and his identity as a rancher. Today, he was ready to confront the rival.
Had become a symbol of the insecurities he once harbored. He had learned to navigate the complexities of ranching, to listen to his cattle, and most importantly, to trust in himself. The drive to the competition brought clarity. Jake's instinct pulled him toward his growing sense of identity. He could hear Lily's laughter echo in his mind, her unwavering belief in his abilities anchoring him amidst the storm of anticipation. Her innocent conversations had illuminated a path toward understanding. It was no longer solely about the competition with Bennett, but a broader narrative of self-acceptance and fatherhood. As the arena drew closer, Jake's heart raced, not from fear, but with a burgeoning sense of purpose. He had been preparing for this moment every day, infusing each labor with love. He recalled his methodical training, the bond he had forged with each steer, and the lessons shared with Lily while tending the ranch. This wasn't merely an exhibition of his skills. This was a showcase of who he had become, a father who had reclaimed his identity through hard work and devotion. When he arrived at the arena, Jake's heart raced, not from fear, but with a burgeoning sense of purpose. He had been preparing for this moment every day, infusing each labor with love. He recalled his methodical training, the bond he had forged with each steer, and the lessons shared with Lily while tending the ranch. This wasn't merely an exhibition of his skills. This was a showcase of who he had become, a father who had reclaimed his identity through hard work and devotion. When he arrived at the arena, lines of competitors buzzed with nervous energy, while the buzz of cattle filled the air. Instead of feeling intimidated, Jake stood taller. He was no longer bound to opening remarks narrated in the shadow of self-doubt. Today, he would speak with his actions. The moment drew near. As he led his cattle into the ring, Jake felt every gaze on him, but instead of shrinking under scrutiny, he embraced it. He could feel Bennett's presence nearby, a stark reminder of the man he needed to confront. Yet today, his thoughts diverted from external validation to an internal narrative. He was here to demonstrate not just skill, but the profound connection rooted in love, resilience, and readiness. The judging commenced. Each command Jake issued was a reflection of everything he had learned with Lily by his side. He felt synchronized with the cattle, each movement effortless as if the connection transcended words. For the first time, Jake understood that competition was just a front. What mattered was the relationship cultivated over months of toil. With every stride, every command, the weight of his past faded, replaced by a surge of confidence that seemed to ripple through the audience. Those once doubtful ranchers now bore witness to something greater, a father cultivating a legacy steeped in love and consistency. Finally, the culmination was upon him. The judges began delivering their remarks. Tension coiled in the air, the silence pregnant with anticipation. And then it came. The winner of this year's competition goes to Jake Donovan. He nearly trembled at the words, disbelief dancing through his veins as the cheers of approval cascaded around him. He had done it, overcome not just the competition, but the internal struggles that had plagued him for so long. As the trophy was handed to him, he felt a swell of pride deep within. This was far more than an accolade. It symbolized his rebirth as a father and rancher committed to nurturing the best in himself and in Lily. Jake stepped from the arena with the crowd's excitement ringing in his ears. He spotted Lily on the sidelines, her bright eyes sparkling with admiration. As he knelt down, the weight of the trophy felt light in his hands compared to the love he had for her. "This is for us, sweetheart," he said, his voice steady with newfound resolve. "This is proof that hard work and belief can conquer anything." The moment was transformative. A palpable connection solidified an understanding. Jake vowed to carry this lesson forward, to approach both challenges and his role as a father with the same intensity he had shown in the competition. He had not just achieved victory, he had proved to himself that being a good father was inextricably linked to believing in himself. Standing together, Jake and Lily watched the sunset bathe the ranch in golden light, a promise of the bright future awaiting them both. Today marked the beginning of a long journey, one that would weave their lives together through every challenge and joy to come. And with that, Jake Donovan exited the arena, not just as a competitor, but as a man transformed, sculpted by his experiences into a pillar of love, strength, and parental commitment. This is your moment too. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. These stories are meant to inspire and uplift, and true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.